Hello everyone, Chris from Paint and Glory here, and what gives? This video said 3D printed Vikings. We're looking at US Marines from World War II. What's going on here? Let me tell you a little about this as you glory at what is my Chrome window. There's this company that I discovered a little while ago, 3D Breed Miniatures. They have run a couple of successful Kickstarters. The first one that I really took notice of was called March to Hell, and it's World War II armies in both 28 and 15 millimeter. For an example, these US Marines pictured here. Now, I did back this Kickstarter. I actually got in on it late. It offers really a ton of value for people who have resin 3D printers and want to print stuff in, again, either 28 or 15 millimeter for, say, bolt action, flames of war, things like that. But what I'm talking about here is Vikings. And while 3D Breed hasn't done a Dark Ages or medieval setting, what they have done is they did the March to Hell Rome Kickstarter, which is actually still available for 2 days for late pledging here. Now, I have zero financial connection to 3D Breed Miniatures other than the fact that I have given them money and I am a happy customer of theirs. I have some prints. I really love them. I'm going to show them to you later. And so even though this video is technically about the Little Wars TV Army Painting Challenge, which is the Dark Ages, Vikings, Anglo-Saxons, etc., I'm going to show you this March to Hell Kickstarter for Rome. And if you have a 3D printer and you see this video within the next 2 days, March 12th or March 13th of 2021, then I would really recommend that you get in on it because it is quite a great value for both ancients and a little bit for Dark Ages. It's not perfect for Dark Ages, but I'm using some of their figures for Dark Ages. It is still available. It is €60 and it's about $70. It's a lot of content in there. You can buy figures individually and in squads from them. Now, the March to Hell Rome stuff is not available yet for purchase, but as you can see with the World War II stuff, about €8, maybe $9 or $10 is going to give you a squad, $4 for a command squad with half the figures, and €2 for 2 guys. So we're looking at roughly €1 a figure, which is comparable with buying plastic. Of course, you do have to 3D print them yourself. It's a lot better if you buy them in bulk, which they do currently offer. I'd have to find it. You can see they have vehicles too. Here it is, the Marine Pack, $60 for this entire US Marine Army versus $60 for the late pledge. You could see how pledging on this is going to be really great. So what we're going to recommend, if you want to use these figures for Vikings, you're not going to use all these figures for Vikings. Obviously, you're not going to use this Roman centurion they have as kind of their unofficial mascot for Vikings. Now, what this Kickstarter, after all the late pledges, what you're going to end up with here is you're going to end up with Imperial Romans, Scorpion, Roman generals, auxiliary archers, cavalry, of course, legionaries with both swords and pilum. And if you love ancients, this is perfect. These are great. I printed some of these guys out. They're great. They look a little squat. I actually print them at a 105% height, but 100% width and depth, and that makes them a little bit taller, a little less squat. But then you also have what they call the Britons, and I'm going to call the Celts. In fact, their file names are Celts. And these Britons or Celts are going to be perfect for your kind of unarmored Viking figures. Not all of them, but a lot of them. For example, you can look at these archers. Because they don't have helmets, they're really just kind of clad in tunics and pants. These could be some perfect unarmored Viking archers. Even their warriors, the ones that don't have kind of these conical helmets with the cheek guards, which look a little ancient, the ones that don't have that could make for some unarmored Viking warriors. Maybe Bondi or Thralls. Some of the shirtless guys are going to make for some good berserkers. Like there's this guy here that has no shirt. There's some riders here that could make for good light cavalry. Of course, the Vikings didn't really make use of cavalry that much, neither did the Anglo-Saxons, but you could use them for some light skirmishers. The rest of this Kickstarter, there's unlocked stuff that I can show you. They don't have previews for them here on the Kickstarter. And then in addition to this stuff, they also have Germany. We're going to talk about that because those are also very useful. And they have some more ancient stuff, some Roman figures, which we're not going to really use for Dark Ages. Carthage, the Republican Romans, those are going to be perfect. Elephants, again, if you want to have your elephant roll up onto, the Battle of Hastings, that'd be interesting. but we're not going to need that. What we are going to do is I have the files here for some of the Celts and some of the Germans that I have pulled out. Now, the Celts I'm not really going to go through because you can look at those on their website. A lot of the archers are going to really be pretty good. There is a particular shield that for your Dark Ages is going to be useful. It is, if it ever loads up, Celtic Shield A. It's kind of a good generic round shield. I would also recommend it. Looks a little small. I would maybe scale it up by like 10 or 15% to make it maybe match a little bit better if you want your shield to be a little bigger. Here are some of the other Celtic Warriors in close-up. And so this guy, he's supposed to be ancient, but he is in fact fairly generic looking in terms of just kind of like wearing some old clothes, like ancient or medieval Dark Ages clothes. He's got a spear. Spear's pretty generic. There's a spot where the shield goes. You print the shield separately from the figures. And, his hair is maybe a little wacky, but at 15 millimeters, even at 28 millimeters, it's really not that bad. Now let me show you the Germans because those are the ones that you're not going to be able to see on the website. There's a variety of Germanic archers. The only things that might, I don't know, some of them have top knots. So if you don't want top knots, you could avoid those or you could clip them off. They all come pre-supported, although there are unsupported files as well. And you can zoom in. This is a 15 millimeter scaled figure. And you could see really the level of detail on this figure, on these arrows. And I printed these arrows and they come out and I'll show them to you. It's really good. That hair takes a wash really, really well. Some of the other figures they have here, these are going to be perfect. I'm really looking forward to these, is they have female German warriors. So if you want some Viking shield maidens, the only downside is they don't have armor. But if you want some Viking shield maidens, these are fantastic looking. Their sword, she's yelling. Excellent texture on the hair. You could see where her shield is going to go there in her left hand. Some of the other figures, they have the horses, another Germanic shield. In fact, that shield might even be identical to the Celtic shield. Here's a Germanic Rider, and he's actually the leader figure. Now, he has chainmail. I've avoided most of the chainmail figures for my Vikings because I find most of their chainmail looks very ancient. It's kind of got these like shoulder pauldron things that you think of when you think of the Romans. It doesn't look particularly Dark Ages, with just kind of like a mail chest piece and some sleeves. But this guy felt fairly generic enough that the mail didn't really scream ancients to me. So there are a couple of male figures in there that you could get away with saying are Dark Ages figures, but some of them are going to look very distinctly ancient, especially the ones with the conical helmets. You also have a lot of really good German warriors, some of them shirtless, like this javelin man, who you could use as a berserker. Oh, no, this guy's not shirtless. Which guy is shirtless? The standard bearer, I think, is shirtless. Yeah, here he is. So this could be kind of a standard bearer for your berserkers. And if you don't like the kind of little dragon standard thing he's got going on there, you could just either remove it before you print it using some simple editing software, or just clip it off and put some sort of banner there if you wanted. And that's going to be really good. I'm going to switch on over to my camera now and show you what these look like when they've been printed out. So here we are with just a sample of the figures that I've printed out. The painted figure is not 3D printed. The painted figure is from an unknown manufacturer. This is one of my berserkers that I painted previously, and I just wanted to compare it to scale. So again, these figures are the 3D printed figures. These are, instead of printing them at exactly the scale that they were provided in, I scaled them up to 105%, slightly taller because it kind of takes a little bit of the chunkiness out of them. And you can see they're real close to each other in terms of height. This guy has kind of like an integrated base into him, whereas these guys are glued directly to these bases. So he has a slight height advantage. If I grab a different one, here's another berserker. He's a little shorter because his figure is just a little bit shorter. So they're really going to fit right in with your 15 millimeter. But to be perfectly honest, I think the quality of the faces, in fact, these figures are very similar. Right? They're both shirtless. They're wearing pants. They will have shields. He doesn't have a shield right now. They have got this long flowing hair. They have mustaches. And yet the muscle definition in the 3D printed figure, I think, is actually significantly better than the hand sculpted figure. And I like this figure. I do. I think he looks good. But I think this 3D printed figure is better. And it costs pennies to produce. Now, that doesn't count the cost of buying the files. It doesn't count the cost of buying the 3D printer. But if you have the 3D printer and you're willing to invest in those files a little bit, you can churn out as many of these as you want. And I think even if you're spending the exact same amount of money, I think these are going to be a higher quality. So let me show you some of the other ones. These were not printed with a particularly high quality resin 3D printer. I have a Photon. No, I have a Frozen Sonic Mini. Sorry, not a Photon. I have a Frozen Sonic Mini, which is a real budget printer. It doesn't even have a 2K screen. It has a 1080p screen. I use anti-aliasing on it. And so there are practically 0 visible lines on it. It's hard to get him close enough. You can see just a little bit of the resolution lines on his cloak. I have hit him with 2 layers of primer. One in black and one in white for a zenithal effect, so he's darker underneath, but also to help try to get rid of that pixelation, artifacting, whatever you want to call it. But it's so hard to pick up on camera, and once I put even more paint on him to actually paint him, it's really going to completely disappear. Here's just another kind of generic warrior with a sword. The one unfortunate thing about using these figures is, again, the armored figures are just not going to work for Vikings. Fantastic if you want to do Ancients, but not for Vikings. Let's see if I can keep this in focus. You cannot see any pixelated or resolution lines on this. This is printed at 0.02 millimeter layer height, and they took about 4.5 hours to print. But it's 4.5 hours for an entire tray, probably about 15 or 20 of these. This guy happened to like his stand. He looks a little weird without the shield, just because his arm's twisted in kind of an awkward way. But he's got a lot of little details here with his knife, a little money bag or something there. His sheath. I probably could have done a little bit better with cleaning up the supports. You can see one here kind of at the end of the sheath a little bit. Actually, that might actually even be basing material that I got stuck on there when I put some grout on this. And then, of course, wouldn't be complete without the Germanic Shield maiden. So I have blue tacked the shield. I think you could afford to scale this up a little bit. I think I scaled this up to 110%. I might go 115, 120%. But just look at the detail on this figure. In fact, let me grab another Shield maiden, because there's one in particular that I didn't grab, but I want to show, because it really goes to showing you the detail on these figures, and that's this one, who from the front, okay, pretty standard looking. Her arm's kind of flat because that's where you're supposed to fit the shield, so it's not going to look as flat. It does look a little weird there, but that's how the file is. That's not a misprint. But just look at the detail in her braid and tell me that a sculpt is going to give you that level of detail. And that's why I'm using these figures. Not exclusively, but I'm using a lot of these figures in my 3D printed Viking army. A lot of the armored Vikings are coming from a variety of manufacturers. I believe these are a mix of Curson and Old Glory, because as of now, the March to Hell series does not have Dark Ages, but when they do, I will 100% be buying them. So 100% wholeheartedly recommend these. You got 2 days to buy into these if you watch this video now. Strongly recommend it. If you have a resin printer, or if you're even thinking about picking up a resin printer and you're interested in Ancients or a little bit of Dark Ages, completely worth it. Paint and Glory recommended. Everyone, you have a good day.